go back, Marty, to just general considerations in aging. You know, many of us have what's called cognitive decline.
Yep.
Oh, I can't remember that word. What is it? Oh, that bugs me so much, right? Very common, middle-aged and on up. And our reaction time is not quite as fast
Of course.
as it used to be. That's kind of the bad news. The good news is that we tend to be more flexible than some of our younger counterparts, and we have the wisdom and the perspective of having lived this long, seen this many generations. We're just not the same at 70 as we were at 25. Our perspective does shift. And so it's really about how do we celebrate the beauty of that, and how do we cope with those other things, like we talked about, you know, chronic illnesses, chronic pain, transitions. Something that I see in my practice a lot is people either preparing for retirement, one person is retired, the other one isn't, or they're both retired, and it's been about 40 years since they've, or maybe never, have spent so much time under the roof with one another. And and you laugh.
I see it often.
But
I see it often as well,
you see it too. Right. And that can be a huge stressor. How do we navigate this? We don't know what to do with one another. I'm used to having the house by myself while my partner is off working.
So say our viewers are, you know, falling under that umbrella. Where would you recommend them to turn for maybe some a resource or guidance? Some of that, some of the previous websites and such that we mentioned?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and you know, it's a really good question, Marty. Many of us, and I'm no exception, yes, I'll look stuff up online, but if I really want to know something, I'm going to ask somebody I trust. I might ask a trusted family member, I might ask a trusted neighbor, maybe I trust my primary care, but I'm going to be asking people generally who I call that the inner circle people. What do you know about this? What is your experience? If you had a bad experience, can I learn from that and not repeat the mistake? So we again, we have to look at, we are individuals, but we're always in the context. Who is our inner circle? Who is our support system? Who do we trust?
Okay.
All right?
I mean, just another point of how important it is to maintain or grow social interaction.
Yes.
We're so isolated. We're in such an individualistic culture. It sort of goes against what the research is saying benefits.
Absolutely. Yes.
Right.
Thank you for saying that. I call that the self-sufficiency paradigm.
Okay.
And you and I, we've talked, we're both familiar with this. You know, the bootstrap mentality, you want to get somewhere, you make it or break it on your own.
Right.
It's all on you. Well, part of the beauty of aging is I realize now how much I benefit directly from people I have never met. For example, I've really been lucky. I've gone to very good schools, starting with pre-kindergarten. But who fought for the quality of education that I've had? As a worker, I've been protected by federal laws. Well, I never really have needed to think about that, except as I've known people who have had workplace injuries. How is that dealt with, right? And what does the law say? So we're all beneficiaries of those who have come before us, who maybe have fought the battle, maybe the battle needs to be refought again.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about, you know, these folks that have sort of aged or morphed into such an individual lifestyle. What's your suggestion on how they can maybe break out of that cycle, maybe open up their minds and social interaction with life? I mean, where would one start? You know,
that's a great question.
Yeah.
You know, I think you really hit on a key, an open mind. And by the way, part of having an open mind is admitting, what am I feeling? Maybe I'm kind of intimidated. Maybe I'm kind of scared. maybe I have to ask my kids, how do I do this online stuff? I didn't grow up with it. They've had it since before kindergarten, right? So that quality of having an open mind, and it's not like we flip a switch, right? It happens incrementally,
it takes
little
practice.
by little. It's like developing trust. Trust is not a given. Trust has to be earned. And
So true.
Our brains, by the way, are always calculating risk and threat. Our brains, I think I talked about this last time, spend twice as much energy
It was great.
on, is that a threat, whether it's real or perceived. And if I'm kind of timid and I'm not sure about getting to know the neighbors, or those young people are going to think that I'm just old has been, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to open my mind and to open my heart. It's hard to open my front door and invite somebody in.
Well, I know for me, for years, it was hard to ask for help.
You bet.
You know, personally,
Yes.
that was something I overcame, and you helped me overcome in 15 and 16, is it's not bad to ask for help.
Right.
And once you learn how to do that,
Yes.
you can really benefit. I mean,
Right.
there are a lot of people out there that are overflowing with the desire to help.
Absolutely.
You just need to sort of
Yes.
open that door a little bit
Yes.
and let them in.
But two things are really important.
Yeah.
One is to recognize when you open that door, even a little bit, that entails being vulnerable. There's no way to open that door without taking a risk. So some of us only open the door a tiny crack. And then the other thing is, it really is about what I call goodness of fit. Let's say that I'm trying to pick out a therapist, or trying to pick out maybe a specialist, right? Just because somebody is smart, well-educated, has all the, I call it pedigree, the certificates, if I don't feel heard, if I don't feel understood, you know what? Life is short. Keep shopping around.
Yeah.
And many people don't have that option, but it's so much harder when there's not that intuitive connection with your provider. And even worse, in my mental health world, when somebody has had a bad experience with another therapist before me, it's 10
makes
times
it
as
more
hard.
difficult, yeah.
They want to keep that door locked, shut, forever. They don't ever want to go back because that other time was too hard.
So say there's a family member with a loved one in that situation. What's your advice to help them cope with that and maybe open that door back up?
Yes. Well, implicit in what you're saying, it's always about the relationship. How much does the other person trust their family member? Is the family member able to say directly from the heart, I'm worried about you. I'm seeing this and that, and here's the impact on me. You may not realize it, but I think about you
Yeah.
every single day. Maybe I'm saying my prayers for you, but my heart hurts when I see you struggling. And yes, it probably does hurt your pride. You don't want to have help, but I just want to let you know, because I care about you, I'm hurting too.
Yeah. Another reason why, someone that you trust is in your circle.
Yes.
So important.
Yes, absolutely. And the other thing, back to the online, oftentimes it's funny, but sometimes we develop more trusting relationships online than we do face to face. That can be a gateway into really good resources, but because we only know people in a certain way, like let's take Facebook.
Sure.
People put their best foot forward.
Oh, yeah.
But we don't hear about the downside, the depression, the anxiety, the other things that they're dealing with. Maybe they just filed for bankruptcy. Are they going to put that on their Facebook page? So we need to also ourselves be discriminating consumers and or have somebody else with us saying, yes, your new best friend is 5,000 miles away, but what do you really know about them? And this is another area that I hate to touch on, but we have to, Marty.
Sure, yeah.
Elder abuse. Many elders want to trust, want to be open, but there's the whole issue of financial exploitation.
Yeah.
And time and again, and here in the United States, we think of child protection. We also have adult protection for impaired adults who could be any age. Many of us will have a developmentally disabled adult child who will always need to be in a protected environment. Or those of us who are sort of the self-made people, but as we go into maybe a more vulnerable cognitive time, maybe our judgment isn't as good as it used to be. And just a sad story, I have a girlfriend whose father was divorced, lonely, elderly, and there was a crime organization that targeted just that profile of individual.
Wow.
And they would send an attractive young adult to say, oh wow, you're just the greatest, and I just love being in your company. By the way, can I borrow a couple $1,000 because I'm having trouble making my house payment? And of course, it's a lot more sophisticated
they gain
than
the
that.
Trust and
But the vulnerability of elders is a real issue. And by the way, those of us of a certain age, we also do not want to admit, for the most part, that, oh gosh, I've been scammed. Many people are so embarrassed that they never even report to the authorities that they've been ripped off.
Where's the first resource that you point folks to maybe turn to look at or research or call an organization that could help with, the possibility of this abuse?
It depends on their community, but in general, law enforcement, if they're at all community friendly, is going to be able to point people in the right direction.
So your local
about
law enforcement first.
Here's what we've seen. And again, if somebody is familiar with the internet, if they just type in a search engine, resources for elder abuse, resources for financial abuse, there's just a whole lot of information out there.
And I know my wife is a physical therapist here in town, and she contacts APS, Adult Protective Services, here in Anchorage, Alaska, but I'm sure geographically it's different. But everybody has local law enforcement.
Yes.
And
well, you
hopefully.
Not always.
I guess they're supposed to.
Right.
But that's a great point. Okay.
Right. And again, it's the vulnerability that's so difficult for us to deal with.
Yeah.